Hello and welcome into episode number 2 of the Sports Mandate here. I'm John Hand.
I'm TJ Horgan.
Thank you for tuning in tonight. We have a fantastic show. October is upon us here in New England, and that means fall.
Yep.
And just about every sports team is in season. Celtics still a few weeks away from the regular season, but their training camp has started. Bruins have dropped the puck. Red Sox are in postseason. The Patriots are a good 4-0, so things are going pretty good here.
Not an easy 4-0, but 4-0 is 4-0.
4-0 is 4-0. So also
some of us are 1-3.
Also, besides the professional sports, high school sports are also going on. TJ, what's been going on in Burlington? How's the football team?
So they're 2-2. They've only played 2 divisional matchups, I believe, in terms of Middlesex League, Freedom Division Small, which is a mouthful, but that's how Middlesex made it. They played Melrose last night and got crushed. Score was 40-21. Melrose beat them. Burlington's defense has not looked as good later into the games. Melrose has this quarterback. I mentioned this last night on the broadcast. If I were drafting for a fantasy football league for the Middlesex League, this would be my number 1 pick. His name's Malik Garrett. And what the Melrose offense does, consistently lines up with 5 offensive linemen. They line up with either 1 or 2 running backs in the shotgun. Malik Garrett didn't take 1 snap under center last night. So he would get the ball, hike it. He also didn't throw for over 10 yards any time. He would throw and maybe his receivers would run, but in terms of air yards per throw, he didn't go over 10 yards. And so he would hike it and he'd run either to the left or to the right, and then if he saw a Burlington defender cutting at him, he'd just toss the ball back to the running back and hope for the best. And his decision-making last night was one of the best I've seen.
So right now with Burlington standing at 2-2, do you still like their playoff chances?
If it were purely based on skill, I'd say yes. But this new Middlesex League format, you play 7 games. If you lose 2 games, you're already down that much. And then plus you have teams like, Melrose and Wakefield, who are powerhouses in that league. So as of now, the playoff chances are diminishing. But if Burlington doesn't lose another game, they definitely have a better chance.
Well, right now in Reading, we're at 1-1, and this is not really what everyone expected.
Right.
I predicted a 7-0.
So Reading's only played 2 games.
Correct. Reading did not play last night. We were filming this on a Saturday. They'll play later this afternoon.
I believe there was a scrimmage somewhere in there with Burlington.
Scrimmages don't count. We're not going to count that. We're going to forget about that. That was in the past. But
Burlington won that scrimmage, by the way.
The Rockets did win week 1 against Drake at 22-21. That was a tight game.
Yep.
And they lost last week to Arlington 17-14. So that has put them unranked in the ESPN Boston polls, which it's not what we many of us Rocket fans expected. But I'm not ready to hit that panic button yet. I'm not ready to give up on this season.
All right.
There's many improvements that need to be made. Amongst those is the defense.
Yep.
They've really come out slow in the first half of games and kind of picked it up as games go on, but they need to come out stronger in the first half and really need to attack the quarterback better.
Yep.
Against Drake, it also has a very good quarterback by the name of Tyler Bissett, and this kid just ran all over the field. He could also throw the ball well.
Yep.
If they could have contained him in the first half, it would have been a much different game.
Right, and when you introduce that aspect to a high school football team, if you have a versatile quarterback like that, you're pretty much unstoppable because you see these quarterbacks in college doing so much for the run game. You're in high school. They're like a few levels down in terms of tackling. They're a step down than college players, and most of them won't go on to play college or professional football. So when you have quarterbacks who are able to take the ball outside and run the ball down the field, then you have a great team right there. It's a nice centerpiece.
Right, definitely. And on the Reading Rockets offense, there's a pretty good quarterback by the name of Drew Belcher.
Yeah.
He's pretty versatile, and he's been throwing the ball a lot. He threw 42 times against Arlington, only completed about 20 of those attempts. So that's not the best completion percentage, obviously, but still, this guy is still an elite quarterback. And I think the biggest problem for him has been the wide receivers. You don't have the same size and speed you had in previous years with a guy like Ryan Manny who could really spread the vertical game. There needs to be a kind of quicker, shorter routes you'll see kind of coming from this Rocket team for Belcher to get the ball. He can still get the ball where it needs to be. I don't think this is Drew. I think the receivers, it's a younger, newer wide receiving core. They need to get more on the same page, but they will be able to do that. Give them a few weeks. Once they can gel together better, you'll see more points on the board. They haven't run the ball as much as you would think. They don't have Alex Valente last year, Tino Perino in years past. They don't have that really dominant running game, but David Sherland I still believe is a good running back.
Yep.
And he's a real power running back. I still have faith in him that once they get that balanced attack going, this offense will look much better.
And, you see that a lot where younger players come in for the high school teams, and that's an obvious weakness for that team. In terms of Burlington's weaknesses, last year you had Chris Aria and Dom Colicchio. They were both elite middle linebackers and outside linebackers for the Red Devils. They both made the Middlesex All-Star team consistently. Both were on varsity 3-4 years. But now you have a younger linebacking core. Right now it's Joe Morgan and it's Shane O'Halloran and Kevin Kakajian. Those guys, one of them, Shane O'Halloran's a sophomore right now at Burlington. And not to say they're not doing well, they certainly are, but just that experience of not starting. Last year, Colicchio and Aria, they were every single down on that field. And right now, it's tougher as you have to, adjust on the fly like Coach McGuire did for Burlington and put new guys in there.
Experience is definitely a thing. Sometimes gets overlooked.
Yep.
You look at their talent, you say they've got so much talent, but you look at an older player, maybe has a little less talent, but he has that experience, and I think that really matters, especially in high school, because Friday Night Lights is a lot more pressure on a younger kid than some other sports.
I'd agree.
So I think experience definitely is a key.
Yeah.
Going back to the Rockets real quick, they're 5th right now in the Middlesex League standings. They're 7th in the power rankings. I still think this team has a shot at the playoffs. Obviously, the 7 games, every game's a must-win. And on the calendars, everyone circle October 25th. They're playing Woburn at home.
Okay.
This is going to be a huge game. I know Woburn's played Burlington.
And Woburn destroyed Burlington, so that was not a pretty game.
This is a good team. They've got a good running attack. This is going to be a crucial game if the Rockets want to win the Middlesex League again.
Yep, definitely. Right now, we're going to go to an interview. We sat down with Brendan Hall. Brendan Hall is the ESPN High School Boston writer. He's been there for a while. We'll see what Brendan Hall said.
Well, welcome into our interview set here on the Sports Mandate, and today we are lucky enough to be joined by ESPN Boston's very own Brendan Hall. Brendan, thank you so much for coming in today.
Thanks for having me. I have a lot of fun with this.
You're our first ever in-studio guest here on the Sports Mandate, so this is a milestone.
How do you be part of history, Jim?
Yeah, you are a part of history.
Part of history. I'll start off the questions. I just wanted to know, when did you start with ESPN and how did you start with them?
Yeah, I started in May of 2010. We launched the high school site in August of that year. So this is going on our 4th year doing high school football across the state of Massachusetts.
So you were kind of a pioneer of high school coverage in Massachusetts?
I wouldn't call myself a pioneer. There's guys, my seniors, who are well more versed in this pioneering stuff than me. I'm just riding their coattails, I guess. So.
Well, people in New England are really engaged in high school sports, and ESPN Boston's a big reason why. You guys offer a unique perspective on the wide world of high school sports. So why is your content so unique?
It's a good question. We kind of went about it. We wanted to cover the entire state. No one had taken a venture where they try to tie the entire state together, do an all-state team, do statewide rankings, true rankings. And so I think this is a small enough state where we can do that, and that certainly felt like a niche. And that's created more buzz. Like, well, is this team from Springfield really better than this team from Reading or Burlington? Or is this team from Worcester really the best team, in Massachusetts, not some team from Mansfield or Lynn or Lowell or whatever? And that's just created more buzz, really. I think people really have caught on to it. And, the way we go about it a little bit differently. I think sometimes you see it with this more national publications, but they go about it more of a pop culture way, or they don't really get in depth the way they do in other sports. And I wanted to give it a level of coverage as far as depth, breaking down the X's and O's, going inside a player's head and strategy and what have you, that to a depth that hadn't been brought before. So I think people really appreciate that as well.
Big presence on Twitter, at BHallESPN. Follow if you already don't. So how does social media change your job? We mentioned that you were verified already, but how has social media changed your job?
It certainly is a very resourceful tool for getting the message out, to the masses in an instant second. When a lot of times with I don't really have an office, so to speak. It's not like where if I was at a newspaper, I could, some news breaks, I could call in a few lines to the desk or something like that. Right. News breaks. Whatever I'm doing, I could be in line at the supermarket. I could be cooking. I could be, whatever. And I gotta find a way to just get the news up there. Twitter is great for that, breaking news. It's great for, sometimes I use it as a way to collect information. Hey, I'm looking for this, and this. Can somebody help us out? We've done that a couple times a year. The thing you got to get good at is having thick skin, because there's a lot of people that have a lot of impulsive tendencies on Twitter, as you know.
Absolutely.
A lot of the banter back and forth. You know, I think it's great for discussion. People have questions, you can answer them. You know, some people say it's more trouble than it's worth. I think there's a lot of value to it. It's about balancing it out.
So you just touched upon this a little bit, but what makes a good high school player, and how does that translate to college and the pros, if it does necessarily?
Yeah, well, the college scouting, it's a unique thing. Obviously, size is important to a lot of these guys. The level of physicality at college is far beyond what you'd expect at the high school level. You need to have the type of body type to endure all that physical activity. It's just so much more intense at the college level. I think that's why size is at a premium for some of these guys when they're scouting. You know, I don't think it's fair to project NFL potential for a kid who's 17, 18 years old. Football is, as you guys know, it's such a wild. I can tell you, even from a college recruiting standpoint, the big boards for these guys when they're recruiting kids, it varies sometimes quite dramatically from program to program because of scheme.
Well, this season, one of the biggest changes has been the new playoff format. So first off, do you like this format?
I love it. I mean, usually this time of year, we're in the first week of October, well, second week of October technically, and this is when the action just starts building up, really. The drama just starts building up because the league title races are coming into focus. You're starting to get it out. For me, and I wrote about this in a column over the weekend, the action picked up right away. It just went into overdrive in week 2. The points are so important. So every game feels like that much more important of a game. And it also gives a ton of teams chances they wouldn't have had before. Really just so much unpredictability, and that makes every game that much more important. There is no week off. No week off.
Well, Reading's got a quarterback many Reading residents are hoping to see at the next college level in Drew Belcher. What have you heard about Belcher's college decision?
It still nibbles, it seems like, from everything I've heard. You ask him any updates, and there's really not much updates other than the usual, Boston College or Delaware or UNH, the usual suspects at the 1A, 1AA levels. I think colleges want to see his senior film and see what he's made of. Obviously Reading isn't off to the best of starts, but I certainly think he has potential to be a scholarship quarterback in college.
This Reading team right now has not had the best of starts. They powerhouse last year, but you still got to think there's some talent still on this roster. Do you still have faith in this team?
Well, certainly with Drew Belcher, I think you have to be in the hunt. And Liam Keneally, DiLoretto, you have some real intangible pieces there. It almost seems like we got kind of spoiled the last couple of years watching Reading just roll over opponents, put up 30, 40 points a game with ease, take starters out at the half. And maybe they didn't have as much power as we thought. We kind of took it for granted a little bit. You look at their record the last couple of years and just how they kind of breezed by opponents. This is a different team, but you look at that D2 North, and boy, it's wide open. There isn't a real juggernaut on that list, man. And we've kind of it seems like we've written them off, hasn't it, after the Arlington loss? But boy, they're still right in it. I think what has hurt Reading is, starting their season week 3, which I think is ridiculous. Nobody wants to be hitting each other for a month. There's just too much that can happen negatively. And part of that is their offense too. It's not built to blow teams out, even though they've been blowing teams out. It's more conservative. It's more 3 yards in a cloud of dust. But the defense has really held its own, I think. They've had their lapses, but inside the red zone, I think they got a pretty good. They've done a pretty good job of minimizing points. And as long as you can count on that, this team can only get better from there. I really like the pieces here in the front 7 for Reading.
So what are your predictions? You mentioned the D2 North wide open. What are your predictions for the D2 North this year?
I still think Reading can come out of it, but I just think whereas a lot of us in the preseason, myself included, thought that they were the heavy favorite. Looks like they're going to have a little bit of competition.
Right.
But I still think in the end, John Fiore is a tremendous coach, and he's got a great track record with this of winning in playoff games, and I think he has enough to get it done in the playoffs and come out of D2 North. Now, once you get out of D2 North, it's a whole other ball game, fellas, because you got some really strong teams across the state. But As far as D2 North, there's no real overwhelming contender here. I think they have a great shot.
Brendan, with all the research you do in this, have you ever thought of starting a Boston High School Fantasy Football League?
Well, gambling's illegal, fellas, and no, it's gee. If I were
You ever
to
get that question before?
we've talked about this actually as a potential business venture. No, but
Yeah.
no, I don't know. I think there's too much to keep track of. I think I go nuts doing that.
Yeah, absolutely.
That would be fun. That would be very interesting.
That would be fun.
That would be wild, gentlemen. That would be
Absolutely.
wild.
Well, that'll do it for our for John, for Brendan Hall. I'm TJ Horgan. Thank you so much for being here, Brendan.
Thank you.
As we mentioned at the top of the show, fall is upon us, and that means October baseball. Yep. And after a little bit of a drought here in Boston, the Red Sox are playing baseball in October once again, and that has excited thousands of fans all across New England. TJ, let me know, what's your World Series prediction?
You know, my World Series prediction, I was in Atlanta last week, so I got to say the Atlanta Braves. I love that team. Their atmosphere at Turner Field, I ended up going to a Braves game. Just such a great atmosphere for a game, totally different than Boston. Very different stadium, very different atmosphere. I've stressed that a lot, but it's, there's fire there. In Boston, I've seen some tweets about the Red Sox fans aren't as fiery. They're not getting as riled up for the games. These Braves fans, you'll pitch a strike and they'll start screaming. So that's a bonus for when your team is going out like that.
Who do you got coming out of the AL?
Coming out of the AL. See, I think that one's going to be up for grabs. Okay. You know, I truly think this Boston Red Sox team can do it. However, I don't think that... I don't know. Honestly, it's really tough to say. There's a lot of teams in the AL. I'm going to say the Boston Red Sox, but that's solely because of their pitching staff. They've been pitching very well. As I said, I turned on the TV for the Red Sox-Rays game. I turn around for 30 seconds, and all of a sudden they're up by 8. Up by 6, 8-2. So that's crazy. If those guys like Johnny Gomes, Mike Napoli, David Ross, if they can get the bats going this postseason, that's going to be the key for them.
My World Series prediction, or a little throwback here. I'm going back to 2004 rematch. Boston Red Sox versus St. Louis Cardinals.
Yeah.
Going with the Red Sox, I think these fans are fired up right now.
Yeah.
I think this is a likable bunch. The whole beard thing, people are really getting into that.
Right.
There was skepticism all year long, I think, of people saying, this is just a lucky win streak, or they're going to drop off here. But they're in the postseason now, so I think people are starting to buy in, starting to reinvigorate their passion for baseball that this city has. And like you said, this pitching staff is dominant and it is healthy. And the key word there, I think, is healthy, because once you put Clay Buchholz back into this rotation, it's a whole new rotation.
That's true.
And also throw in there John Lester's post-All-Star break performance. He's a 2.57 ERA since the All-Star break, and he's been a whole new pitcher since the All-Star break. They got Jake Peavy at the trade deadline, and John Lackey is a whole new man as well. And then you throw in their offensive production with Gomes, Napoli. Ellsbury's been hitting the ball pretty well, and of course David Ortiz.
Yeah.
I don't know how he's doing it, but he's doing it.
I don't know how he does that. That's totally ridiculous.
I think the Dodgers will self-implode eventually. Maybe they beat the Braves. I actually do think they will, because they do have that front-end guy by the name of Clayton Kershaw, who is just absolutely dominant.
That's true. And the Cardinals do have a dominant. Cardinals do have a dominant team, and it's interesting to see because they were second, third in their division, fighting for that number 2 spot throughout pretty much the whole year. And I was always saying, this Cardinals team is going to make it to the playoffs. I know they will. They're too good not to.
One thing I do like about the Cardinals, and I think is a key factor about this team, is Yadier Molina. This guy hits with power. He's hitting .319 right now. But I think a lot of people know this about him, but sometimes flies under the radar is the way he calls the game. He manages this pitching staff so well.
He knows every single pitcher.
He knows every single pitcher, and he makes them that much better.
Absolutely.
And I think he'll be an X factor for this team getting to the World Series.
And that's exactly why you can see guys on the Cardinals like Michael Wacha, like Shelby Miller. You can see them come in, haven't pitched an inning in the big leagues before, and immediately do well because of Yadier Molina and how he calls that game.
So we'll see what happens here as October rolls on. I think Red Sox Cardinals. He thinks Red Sox Braves. One thing we do agree on is the Red Sox. So everyone in Boston has their fingers crossed as we hope to see some late October baseball here in Boston.
Hockey season has kicked off. John mentioned earlier the puck has dropped for the Bruins. Right now we're going to talk a little bit about hockey, a little bit about the Bruins. John, what did you see from them in their first game?
Oh, this team has another shot at the cup. That's what I saw.
Immediately. That's immediately what you
Just
saw.
right off the bat. I think
All right.
on paper this team had another shot at the cup
Right.
for even the beginning of the season. The one question mark before we get into all the great things about the Bruins is would Sagan have matured on this team? Obviously, the big blockbuster trade this summer,
Yep.
sending him to Dallas. Would he have been that elite goal scorer they needed him to be? We'll never know. We'll see if we'll never know if he would have been that on the Bruins. We'll see if he turns into that in Dallas.
And clearly they traded him because they didn't think he would.
He would, right. And I do think they got Louis Eriksson, and I think he will be a good addition to this team.
Yep.
But other than that, Bergeron's healthy again. I think Chara's got another run in him. Tuukka Rask is back again, got a brand new contract, and they also signed Dennis Seidenberg long term. So this team is pretty much intact. So this is the team you will see. And one big addition this year that I absolutely love is Jerome McGinley.
I was about to say that.
I
Yep.
think he will be a better addition than Nathan Horton. He'll play alongside Lucic and Krejci, and I think that's a really good second line right there. This guy's a goal scorer, and one little thing about him is that he's one of the hockey's all-time greats, but he's never won a Stanley Cup.
Right,
so I
right.
think this guy's motivated to go out there and say, I chose to pass on the Bruins last year,
Yeah,
but I'm coming back
definitely.
because I think this team has a shot at the Cup.
I agree with you with that. Jerome McGinley is a very mature player. He knows how the game goes. He's been in the game for so long. And you put on this Bruins team who is signing players long term. You get a guy maybe 1-2 years with the team. That's going to fire them up. They're going to get to the playoffs.
Right, and I think he's also a great locker room guy. You saw in that first game, he already starting to fight. What a way to win over the
Yeah.
Bruins fans.
Right.
So this is a great addition. He represents everything that about Boston, that Boston hockey players should represent. I really like this Bruins team.
Another note about the Bruins: Tuukka Rask is already second in save percentage. He's number one in terms of goalies who didn't get a shutout. So there are 3 goalies above him who didn't let up a goal. However, Rask has a .970 save percentage, which, if he can keep that up, will definitely be helpful to the Bruins. I think last year we saw, sporadically Rask was doing well. Sometimes he would collapse. In the playoffs, he certainly did well, though.
Right, and I think Tuukka's your elite goaltender. He's the guy you want guarding those 2 posts. Tim Thomas is now back in the NHL, but I'm very happy we have Tuukka Rask. But looking at that Atlantic Division, you have teams like the Penguins, Red Wings, and Rangers who will be very good threats to the Bruins and not making that run. But they've beat these teams before. I think the Penguins are vulnerable. But one thing to keep your eye on will be the Rangers. I think this team will be much better without John Tortorella as their head coach. So they'll be a better team. But still, I think the Bruins have that edge. They have that, I guess, hockey, you don't really hear this word, but swagger about them. They go out there, they play hard, they play the game the right way.
Yep.
It's going to be fun to watch this team.
And another note about the Bruins that I saw, there was only Bruins player was not top 25 in time on ice. Sure, that's only one game, but that proves to you the Bruins are not resorting to throwing the same guy on the ice every single time. They're splitting it up. And if they can win games by 2 goals by not having a player in the top 25 for time on ice, that's definitely a good sign. That shows they're not putting their eggs in one basket.
I worry though about Zdeno Chara's minutes.
Yeah.
I think they really need to cut down on his minutes.
He was number 26.
Right. The way last year in the playoffs, you saw him logging a ton of minutes. He was really the anchor to that defense, and he
still will be.
still is. He's the captain of the team, obviously. So I think you really have to watch his minutes, save him for the playoffs. Last year was a shortened season because of the lockout. Now you're playing a full 82 games.
Right.
So now you really have to watch his minutes because he is so important to that defense. But having said that, guys like Dougie Hamilton and Torrey Krug, who gained, like we talked about in high school sports, this kind of translates to hockey, valuable experience
Absolutely.
in the playoffs last year, and they performed well. So now they got a year under their belt. They're coming out year 2. I think we see a lot of improvement from these
And Krug
guys.
and Hamilton are guys who the Bruins are going to be having on their radar for big contracts in the near future.
Definitely.
Right now, we're going to go to some football talk. We'll be right back.
Well, keeping with this fall theme, this is going to be a theme for, I guess, our episode today. Football is in full swing, heading into week 5 this week.
And are we happy about it?
Very happy about that. But we're kind of at the point at the NFL season where we see what teams are really made of.
Right.
They'll either kind of go up from here or go down.
Yep.
So up until this point, TJ, what are your biggest surprises?
Kansas City Chiefs. What else can you say?
Sure.
Andy Reid's 4-0 last year with the Philadelphia Eagles, notably a better team than this Kansas City Chiefs team. He had not a good record last year, and then he got kicked out of Philadelphia faster than the McRib was kicked out of McDonald's. So you see Andy Reid in Kansas City right now. He's doing very well with that team, and I like the Chiefs' chances this year.
See, I don't want to brag here, but I did kind of see the Chiefs being pretty good.
You did. All right, I'll give you that. You did.
I like Alex Smith and the Andy Reid combo.
Yep.
They got a lot of weapons there. They just needed the right guy to man the ship, and that was Andy Reid.
Yep.
My biggest surprises this year are the Steelers, 0-4.
Yep.
Giants, 0-4.
Okay.
Titans at 3-1.
Yep.
And this one will be a surprise. The Broncos at 4-0. And I'm not saying I didn't think the Broncos would be good. I thought they would be good. I didn't think they would be this good.
Yeah,
This is a good football team.
That's insane.
Peyton Manning is playing out of his mind right now.
You think of a guy 2 years ago, people were saying, is he ever going to play again because of that neck surgery? Now he's making every single receiver on that team look good. So here at the Sports Mandate, we like to have a little fun. This is the segment we call 30-second headline. We each take a headline that the other has no idea what it is. We don't tell them ahead of time, and we read it to them, and they have 30 seconds for a reaction. So right now, John's going to read his mystery headline to me, usually a crazy story, could be outside of the world of sports, something that we haven't heard. And I have never heard this headline prior to this, and John has never heard my headline prior to this, and these are true news stories. So I'll put 30 seconds on the clock, and after 30 seconds, that's it. All right? So John, what's the headline?
So this is coming from Fox.com, and I'll just read the story to you.
Yep.
With over 15 million views, the Geico Hump Day commercial is one of the most memorable commercials to date.
Right.
But the catchphrase has gone too far, according to one middle school. Now students at Verone Middle School in Verone, Connecticut, are banned from saying it. And while the school administrators say it's a distraction for some students, parents are saying that they don't think it's too big of a deal. So Verone Middle School, you can no longer say it's hump day in the middle of the week, no matter how tough your week has
This
been.
is appalling. Are you kidding me?
This is a
You're
true
not allowed
story
to say
from
hump day.
Fox.com.
I can't even believe that. That's totally upsetting. I don't want to go all crazy First Amendment on here, but you can't say hump day. This is not a racial slur. This is not a swear word. It's hump day.
It's distracting for students.
This is crazy. So I have 5 seconds left for this is for you, Verona Middle School. Hump day! All right, John, my headline for you, I'll put 30 seconds after I read this. The WNBA Finals have commenced. The Atlanta Dream is in the WNBA Finals. Their home stadium, Phillips Arena, they were kicked out of it for Disney on Ice. So Disney on Ice took precedence over the home stadium of the WNBA Finals. What do you think about this?
Well, where's the finals even going to be played? They found like an extra facility.
Or they just didn't play that night.
See, this is the NBA is pooling money into this thing, and they want it to be taken seriously. They put it on ESPN and whatnot. But then you get kicked out for Disney on Ice. So basically, what that says to me is that Disney on Ice is getting better attendance than the WNBA
Precisely.
Finals. So what are they still doing, keeping this thing going? This is embarrassing.
It is. It is embarrassing.
I feel bad for all the WNBA. You know what? I guess for just my final comment here would be, for the sake of the WNBA, tune in to the finals for at least a minute so they get some viewership.
Right.
Make them better than Disney on Ice. Man,
Yeah.
that is sad.
Yikes. I'm sure Manti Te'o's girlfriend's a huge fan of the WNBA. Right now, we have your water cooler talk. These are your news and sports headlines for the week.
The United States government has claimed they've exhausted all their options. You know what this means? It's Tebow time.
The NHL is back and there's no more government. Did someone say Tim Thomas?
Amidst allegations of using performance-enhancing drugs, Alex Rodriguez claimed he believed the supplements he took were legal. ...
Speaking of lying, Derrick Rose said he's ready to return and there's no holding him back when he's on the court.
When asked to comment on his team's success, Kansas City Chiefs head coach Andy Reid said, Yeah, that's great. When's the McRib coming back?
The Tampa Bay Buccaneers have recently released longtime quarterback Josh Freeman. The race for free agent Freeman is a lot like when you and your friends agree to jump into the pool, but you all know no one's going to jump into the pool, and there's only going to be that one goofy fat kid jumping into the pool going, hey guys, let's jump. No! That's going to be the Cleveland Browns.
Alex Rodriguez claimed his investigation by the MLB was a witch hunt, an attempt to throw him out of baseball. The only way to really find out if he's a witch or not, toss him in the water. He floats, he's guilty. Sinks, he's innocent.
I like that plan. I'd do that.
Well, maybe Alex will have to come down to Salem for his trial.
Week 5 marked the second week of NFL bye weeks when each team gets the week to rest. They get a week off. The Week 5 bye weeks were the Vikings, the Redskins, the Steelers, the Buccaneers, and newly added, the United States government.
Well, thank you everyone for tuning into this episode of The Sports Mandate. It's been a ton of fun.
Yep.
Thank you also to everyone who made the show possible, Brendan Hall, RCTV, everyone working hard in the control room.
Everyone there, as the United States Congress would say, we're shutting down.
We'll see you next time.